Hashtag You're It. I'm Amanda Malcolm, and you're listening to You're It Girl, a podcast focused on you and what propels you. Because that past, it does not define you. Your time is now, and you're it, girl. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You're It Girl. Today, I have one of my very good friends, Wendy Ortiz, on the podcast today. Thank you for coming, Wendy.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually, you know what? I'm super excited for you to be here today because as we were talking before we started, this is going to be, a lighter episode. Finally, thankfully, a lighter, more relaxed episode. Even Nick, my production person, said when I came in today, he said, "You seem so much more like vibrant and relaxed today." And
we had a big bucket to empty.
It was a big bucket to empty. And I said, I'm going to be with somebody today who I'm very comfortable with.
Oh,
and that
thank you.
Is you.
Thank you. Thank you. And likewise.
Thank you. Thank you. And it was actually really, when I first started the podcast, I mentioned to you in the very first episode that you are one of the people that I sat down with months and months ago when I was thinking about doing something very different than how this whole thing transpired. And we were together at a restaurant and started talking about our past a little bit. Yes. And we worked together as well. So we have quite a deep background.
But on a professional level, like the level of what I've understood now is not ever what I knew was coming. So
because I didn't really share that until we were together. I don't even know where that came from either. When we were together at dinner, I think you were sharing a little bit about your past with me. And then I opened up, you had already started this amazing podcast and Instagram called
50 is a mind fuck, F-U-C-K. If we can swear in here. But
yes, we can swear in here.
It's more of an adjective than a verb.
It depends on how you use it.
That's true.
And so you had already started that, and you'd always inspired me with the way that I know that you got a lot of, a lot of positive feedback, but some negative feedback from that when you first started it. And so that had always kind of inspired me. So I don't want to say I was afraid to kind of do something myself, but anyway, we were talking about our backgrounds a little bit, and I shared some of my story with you. We got on the topics of moms.
Yes.
And then I shared kind of some deeper things, and you had said that you should share this story. Yeah. You could really help people. And in that moment, when we talked about that, it was really one of the first times that it really got my wheels kind of turning.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So speaking of, if you would just kind of give a little bit of background on yourself and your past, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, and I'll speak to the whole reason I started 50's a Mindfuck was just a really quick snippet is my dad died when I was 50. And I was raising children and careering and lifing. And all of a sudden I was 50 and I was hit with the first time a death of somebody I cared. I won't cry. But my dad died and it really was like life's way of flicking me in the head. Like I've never been flicked before. And I was like, I saw the things that I hadn't seen that were like really affecting my life. And I just decided, I didn't even decide. Life took me on a journey where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm fixing some things that I didn't know were broken. And I started digging like deep into the things that I didn't know were problems until I started to unfold and understand them. And I really was on this quest to understand and change. And talks a lot about when you go to change, you may lose people in your life. You may experience some pushback, but I was at the point in my life where I didn't care anymore. I needed to like start fixing me. And we could talk for hours about the things that I'm still discovering about. You guys, you blink and you're 50. You blink and you're 50. And I know that we've talked about like how great it is that you're starting your journey at a much earlier stage, but whatever it was that brought you to the point when you told me your story, I still get goosebumps. Even when I watch what you've done so far, I'm like, wow. So that's like how few people in your life that you meet that you go, wow, like that's where it came. Like you need to share this story. good, bad, ugly, dirty, smelly, you have to share it because the worst case scenario is you're emptying all that's inside of you. So once this has blossomed and opened, then the healing can start, and whatever that looks like for you, right?
And that actually is something that you just said. Once you start kind of dumping that, what was that like? What was your initial experience? Because I've been talking a little bit about that and now kind of going through that. And there's going to be an episode that's going to air before yours where it actually talks about that initial experience, which I was not expecting. And we've talked about that a few times. What was that like for you when you started talking about those things? What were the things that were kind of unexpected?
I would say that there was no stopping me. Like it was a locomotive, like it was coming out of me like I never ever understood. I had been to counseling a little bit here, a little bit there, which whatever it looked like. And my mom always said to me, when you're done, you'll know it. And it was so poignant. Like there was no stopping me. I've spent most of my life trying to be kind and nice and appeasing and agreeable and following the rules.
I know this well.
Yes. And I decided that I was going to start being myself. And that was another aspect of it too. But I really want to be clear that I didn't know that I was not. I didn't know that I wasn't living in my true self. And it's very deep and I could go into a lot of detail about it, but nothing was going to stop me. And that even came down to my professional life, what people would think about me, or I know that you can appreciate that. There was just no stopping me. And I knew that the people that would be there for me would be there for me in the end. Right. So I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yes, makes sense to me. And as far as so Wendy and I worked together. So when I first went into real estate, Wendy Ortiz was really my first mentor. We were both part of the same team. And so you really taught me so much at the very beginning of my career.
That makes me feel good because I never know if I'm a good mentor or not.
Yes, you were a wonderful mentor.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate
And then
that.
of course we became friends on just a much different level after you kind of went a different direction with a different team. And I think some of that, I'm not sure how comfortable you are talking about that particular topic, but some of that you mentioned a little bit professionally. So far I haven't been faced. It's been interesting on a professional level. Some of the things that have come up, people that are very close to me with what I've shared are very supportive.
Yes.
And then there's almost like this secondary layer of people that felt like they knew you so well. And then they seem so shocked by what they've just heard that they're not really sure how to kind of treat you when you walk into a room and you sort of feel this like naked, exposed type of feeling.
Right.
Did you have something like that similar happen? Or what was your experience professionally once you started talking about these things?
Well, I have to say, and I actually had this conversation earlier today with somebody else, that it wasn't okay, and we talked about this too, it wasn't okay or cool to be yourself when I started what I did. It wasn't okay. And I knew I could feel, I'd walk into a room and I could feel the look up and I could feel feel the looks. I could feel it. But I also kept that. I also had myself in a nom de plume. Nobody knew I was doing what I was doing. And then inevitably it kind of starts to, let's call it, leak out for argument.
Of course.
Yeah. And I knew people were gossiping quickly, and even more so now. But when I started it wasn't okay to do that. But again, it goes back to that I just didn't care.
So talk about a little bit about when you started that. What was some of this, some of the topics you were talking about and some of the things that you were, because remind me, you started everything on, was it TikTok or
on Instagram? On Instagram. But I had a burner number, so my number wasn't connected to it. So it wouldn't come up in people's feed. And it's a lot different today. And then I started the podcast because I did have all these subject matters, but it really encompasses everything that comes with being 50 that you don't know is coming with being 50. And you think you're just kind of, everything's great. And then your dad dies, or you want to get divorced, or you're sick, or you don't have enough money to retire, or your husband comes out as gay. There's so many subject matters that I have that you think you're just getting out of raising your children and you're professionally kind of at a pinnacle, and you think, whew, I can breathe easy now. And then your parent dies, or your kids leave the house, being empty nesters. It's huge. You got to look at your spouse and go, ooh, or there's things you have to really, really face because all of the layers are peeled back now. And it just really makes you raw. And this is my experience. It doesn't mean that everybody's, I do think there's more of that going out there. I have friends that 2 husbands have come out as gay. This is all after 50. And this is when you think you're going to be living easy. I have one friend who had the surprise divorce after 30 years. She literally left that divorce with a hairbrush. I mean, he took everything for no reason. And she's like, I'm literally starting over at 57, actually. So there's so many subject matters that you don't even think about at 30 or 40 or even 45. And then I would say everybody has a different relationship with a parent. As you know, I have one difficult parent, and my other parent passed. And that really opened up my, and I said this in a recent post on my TikTok too, is that my dad's death almost gave me birth. And I'm not crying.
I've cried a lot the last 2 weeks, and I don't cry. A lot of people have said to me, it's so frustrating, Amanda. Like, you don't cry, but I rarely cry, but I've cried a lot the last few weeks. So cry away.
The body's way of releasing. Crying's okay, but
you'll make me cry just because you're.
I know. But clearly, it's a nerve that needs to be looked at, and my dad's death just actually changed my life.
I remember when that happened because we were working together at that time. And I remember it really, really shook you.
Oh, it did. And my marriage was in the shitter. I mean, it shook me. That was such, and I couldn't, it's going back to kind of that facade. I felt that I wasn't in a position I had to keep my face on, and I do that pretty well, but it was so overwhelming. Looking back at it, I'm like, oh my God. And that's actually the moment that I said, I'm stopping alcohol. Now, it doesn't mean I don't drink, but I was like, I gotta be here for this. This is going to be a big thing. So it was I don't know. It feels so great to live in my best life right now. But again, I say it, I didn't know that I wasn't. The children were so reliant on me. My career, I make the income in my house. So there's a lot of reliance on me. And I'm also the last surviving person in my family. My mom, I am responsible for her now. And so I almost say you don't know what you know until you know what you know. And then you know what you know. And that's kind of how I feel like I can go, that's what that was. So I'm hoping that I'm not sort of all over the board in the respect that I knew I had to fix my life now. And it wasn't that it was bad. If you looked into my life, you might be like, oh, everything's fine. We talked about too, yours. I looked when I first met you. I mean, in all honesty, the word is not jealous. It's envy, but not in a bad way. It's just God, she's got it so together. Recognizing that we have an age difference. I recognize the things you'd already been through, right? With your previous marriage and things like that. But I just felt like everybody else had it better than I did.
Perception is a very fascinating thing.
Yes, it is. It is. It's very, and I don't know how people perceive me, but that goes back to me saying, I don't care.
You don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah.
In a good way. I spent most of my life trying to keep things looking tidy, so.
I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And something that you said before resonated with me as well. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and we've talked about this. I felt like I was being authentic as well. I feel like there's nothing about me, but I mean, you know me quite well. There was nothing that I was trying to put out there for people to have a certain perception of me. Generally, I am a happy person, and I'm positive, and I love my career, and I have great friends, and I feel like I have all these things to be grateful for. So it wasn't to be inauthentic.
Right.
And it wasn't really to hide it. I didn't even realize that I was even doing that. And I almost didn't want those things to be the things that like now everybody notices and they're like, oh, now I know why you are the way that you are. And I kind of just didn't want those to be the reason for where I am in my life until I realized, well, those are the reasons
I am where I'm in my life.
Where I am.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very fair to say that the profession that we were in and the setting we were in, that was important to keep tidy. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that is still wildly important. But now I have realized that with where I am in business at this point, it wasn't something that I was now fearful of talking about. And I was before.
Sure.
I didn't want these topics to be sort of, and again, not that I was trying to keep them a secret, but I didn't want to bring them to the forefront.
Right. Because that's not your profession.
It's exactly. It's not our profession. We're supposed to show up and be ready to work and we don't have problems, right? We just don't. We're there to solve yours. It's a high level of, it's the highest level of hospitality, luxury real estate. And so we don't have problems.
Right.
We show up, we're dressed up, we're ready, we're on time, and we're going to solve your problems. And these things are not the forefront of, I didn't want it to be the forefront of things that were known about me, I guess.
Well, I don't even know that I think now that you can look back at it, you can say that. In living in it, it was like, no, this is my job. This is my job.
Exactly.
I'm good, right? I'm good.
Everything's good. Everything's fine.
Yeah. But nobody cares in our profession what your problem is. Nobody. They don't.
Yes.
It's okay. But there's an analogy about two frogs, and this may or may not make sense to you, but I think it will. Two frogs are on a stove and they're in a warm pan of warm water, right? And this will speak to what we talked a little bit about. This frog over here, someone turns the heat up to high and it immediately gets hot. They jump out, right? This one is just comfortably sitting and the heat is slowly turned up that they don't even notice. And they wind up cooking to death. And that is like such a poignant state because I think I was cooking to death and I didn't even know it.
Now, I know that you have a relationship with your mom now.
Yes.
I've met her many times.
Yes.
So what is, I know we're kind of going off on a weird tangent, but what is that relationship? Well, first of all, what was your relationship with her growing up? And then what's your relationship with her now?
It's funny. I have my high school diary and it's on my social and I read it's from freshman year, 1980.
Oh, that's so incredible that you have that.
It is. But I would tell you we always had a good relationship. I will tell you through my journey though that I've recognized that she was quite verbally abusive. I'm not faulting her for that. I recognize where she came from and who she is.
You talked about that.
Yes. And in 85, she's not changing. So I recognize I have to receive what she says differently. But I see now she's the same as she kind of always was. But that goes back to me not knowing I'm this frog over here. And I'm still contending with how to respond to her very sharp tongue. You've met her, but she is beautiful and fun, and people are like, she's so amazing.
Yes, she does have that aura about her.
And she is. But to me,
very different.
She's very different. And that's been a big realization. And I've carried that into, I recognize that I may have married someone like that. Didn't even know it.
This happens.
It does happen. You know, they say you marry your father. I did not.
I married my mom too.
Real? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I just put that together.
But you know him.
I do.
He is a great guy. So yes. I married my sober mom. You know.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
If you listen to you have to listen to that episode. But anyway, we don't want to launch into that. But yes,
right.
Same.
Recognition of, oh, that's what that is, right? So we have a great relationship, but I will tell you that I do have to protect myself a little bit more than I knew to do so before.
How do you do that?
I just, when she's being a little peppery, I go, oh, mom, I love you. Gotta go. Bye. Call you later. Oh, you're cutting me off. Yep. So I just protect myself from those bullets when they come. And I just I don't go into, I try not to be alone with her anymore because the older she's getting and the more that she's recognizing her mortality, and the more that she's getting more fearful, the more she lashes out a little bit, and the filter is long gone. But I look back at the diary and I'm like, it's similar.
Well, I wish I had a diary. Maybe actually I don't wish I wish I had that diary. You know what's been interesting about this whole thing is now that I've been talking about it, and I don't know that I'm going to actually be able to talk to my mom after this anymore. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But what has been interesting is the things that have come up that I completely forgot about and didn't even have any recollection of until now that I've been talking about it, and extended family members have reached out, or my mom has told me something, and I'm like, I don't even, now I recall it, but I didn't even recall it, months ago when I was writing all of this down.
But you may not have even known that it was something to talk about.
That's actually the problem. And I wish I didn't remember.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't remember.
Yeah.
Because that's what actually brings the tears.
But your body is giving you that, your body is doing that to you for a reason, right?
Yeah.
That you don't remember it.
This is going to become a counseling session with you counseling me.
I don't know.
You're counseling me.
I don't know. I mean, I think that like, if I tell my kids, if the tears are coming, they got to come out, right? It's like a little nerve. It's a little painful nerve, and you got to fix it. But you know that now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I'm working on that now. And thankfully I have people like you
that
have already been through this journey. No, really, I really am so thankful, because I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't have people like you that are checking in on me and just asking me how I feel about it. And actually, I remember when not to go back to this, but
it's okay.
I remember when your father passed away, and I had asked you one time how you were doing, and you stopped and you paused and you said, "No one's asked me that." And you started crying. And it's so interesting because, and that's nothing compared to, losing somebody close to you is nothing compared to me talking about my past trauma. But
there's no, interrupting you, there's no comparison in trauma. I've learned from my daughter. There's no comparison in trauma.
Thank you for that. But I forget what I was going to say now, but
you stopped me and asked how I was doing.
What's interesting about this whole thing is the discomfort that the sharing of these things, or sharing of trauma, whatever the trauma may be, that discomfort, how uncomfortable other people are at the things that you have experienced, and how, I don't know if it's fear, or maybe it's just that, I don't want to ask how they are in case I'm not ready for what that response is going to be. So instead, they just don't say anything.
Right. Or you do, and that makes me so, actually almost nobody asked me, how are you doing? Which is so fascinating. But I think
it's fascinating. Why is that? Why does nobody ask, how are you doing?
Perhaps, it could go to the fact that we are always so efficient appearing, because like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I think you do as well, from your past to your siblings to where you're at now.
I think this is the thing we do unintentionally also, working on that.
Unintentionally, yes. But I think I don't know that we just go. Like I can say, I don't even remember. And I was told this, you won't even remember this year. And that is so true. I just was on autopilot.
Yeah.
Remember delivering those pies? My dad died November 7th, and we were doing pies that next week.
We used to deliver, still do deliver, because I'm part of the same team, but pies to all of our past clients. And I think now the list is up to like 220. And so every Thanksgiving,
I know, but it's a great piece of our business. I
remember,
like
incredible.
Yeah,
and
making
it's so
those,
thoughtful.
It is. People love it. It's a
I
very
love
nice
doing
thing.
it, but also it's a lot.
It's a lot, and everybody loves to talk.
And you were doing it during that time frame.
Yeah, but I was on autopilot, and nobody even, and this is nothing against anybody, but nobody was like, "We got you. We'll take care of you," or like but it is what it is. Like I had to do what I had to do because,
it's actually terrible that I think about it now because I knew you through that. And it's interesting in like the face of tragedy when things do happen, what the natural human response is. And you think that it would be to gather around someone, but actually oftentimes it is to retreat.
Right. Maybe people are uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. Maybe they don't care. Maybe this is too real for them. But I often say, excuse me, you guys, I often say like, I didn't know mourning until I had to become a mourner. Like, now if my friend's parent is dying, I'm like, I'm there.
Because you've experienced it. Now you know.
And I know what it feels like now, but it's just, now I understand it's empathy. And I feel like I'm pretty empathetic in general.
You are incredibly empathetic.
Yeah, but
one
now
of your
really
very
know.
strong qualities.
Thank you. It's a superpower.
It is a superpower.
I've messaged you and I'm like, are you okay? And you're like, I was just thinking that.
It's so odd because every time you have messaged me, I know it sounds crazy, but truly, I mean it. That one day that you did message me, and I don't even know if you knew the podcast was going out.
No.
But there's been a couple other times where you've done that, where you've messaged me about something like really deep. And I went to sleep thinking about you and then woke up and my first message was from you.
Isn't that weird? Well, no, I believe there are no accidents.
And
yeah.
Because of how you are, you just know exactly what to say and how to say it. Everybody should have a friend like that.
I don't know. I don't know. It is kind of a superpower in a way, even with my clients, but like we give to people what we kind of need to, I think.
Oh, this is interesting.
Maybe, but I can't help it. It just comes out of me. So I don't know that that's actually the case, but I got through it and everyone does, just a lot of learning, and I'm still learning, but now I can go, oh, that's what that means. That's why I do what I do. Or, I
love that awareness piece of it. Yeah.
I'm annoyed that it had to take me as long as it did.
You've expressed this to me.
Yeah. I'm really, if I can say one thing to anybody, if one of you hears this, it's like, don't wait until you're 50 to tackle the problems that are there. But I say that, and I didn't even really know how bad it was.
And I know you and I recently had this conversation. You were saying that to me too. And I said, let me remember how I said this. I said to you that it just wasn't the right time. And think how many people you're helping now that you are, because of the experiences that you've had. It wasn't that time before. Because of all those things, they lined up perfectly to put you in the space that you are now, to be able to help with the things that you are helping with. Because otherwise those things wouldn't be there. You wouldn't have those things to share. And that's why so many are coming to you with these things and sharing similar experiences, because, and I don't want to use 50 as the number, because whatever number it may be.
It is a number. It's a segue. It's a number, especially from my generation. A lot of commonalities that you guys, your generation does not have. The stuff that I'm like, I'm just going to interject. I did a post about my marriage, and I mean, it did pretty well. And I had like 2,800 comments.
What was the post?
I talked about
2,800 comments.
And it was one of the viral ones on TikTok, but women that came to me privately and in the whole thread, me too. Oh my God, this is me. Oh my God, this is my life. What did you do? How are you okay? What about the kids? I had talked about my marriage and the verbal abuse and that I left, and just kind of a quick snippet of what I went through, because there's a lot of misogyny on that site. And a lot of wonderful people too, though, I have to say. But the misogyny pieces, every so often I'll bring one up and go, because I hear that the comment I saw was too often and too much from a man in my generation. I'm 56, you guys.
Can you share the comment? Or
just about, another stupid woman bitching about her marriage. And I go, what did you, excuse me? So I felt the urge to give a quick 1-minute synopsis of my life.
Oh, goodness.
And it was really terrible how many women had the same scenario. And this is my generation, where you stay for the children. I said in the video, I said, people say, why didn't you leave? I love my children to this day more than I love myself. And that is it. And you can tell, like, probably appreciate that. You've gone through your own things. But at the time, I felt like when I had children that I gave away my rights to the certain things that I wanted. And that's the way that I feel. I said, whether you like it or not, or agree with me. And so many women had the same scenario I did.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you worked on your marriage, and you are married. You're still married.
Only after I left a final time. I was so done. This was one of those things. And I left, and then he got COVID for 2 weeks. He was in the hospital, and he turned around.
This also.
Yes. And that was the last straw. And he knows it. He knows it to this day. So, and now he's straightened up.
But something changed for him.
I don't care.
In that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better have.
But well, it did, obviously.
Yeah. There was no going back. There was no going back in my heart, in my head. So, yeah. So we made a great family in 35 years.
You did make a great family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were such a great mom.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Great kids.
Your kids are very lucky.
And likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we learn from the poop we got, and we hopefully change it for them.
Yes.
But never fear. Things will always emerge with children.
They always emerge. Yes. Sometimes they do emerge, don't they?
Yeah.
Don't
I don't know.
that.
I hope I answered your questions.
Awareness.
Though.
You did. You did. I wanted to, as far as your segue into 50 is a mind fuck, and how do we find you? How do people follow you? Give us all the details.
Okay, so on Instagram, it is spelled properly. 50 is a mind, F-U-C-K. On TikTok, it's F-U-K-K, same spelling, but 50 is a mind, F-U-K-K. I'm on YouTube, and I'm reigniting my podcast, and it's this proper 50.
I can't wait to listen to it.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. And those are the only platforms that I'm on, because again, I'm kind of in a secret spot.
Okay, you're still secretive.
Yeah.
Still secretive.
Yeah. But
is there anything, I know this always happens to us, we get off on these wild tangents, which I'm so glad that we did. Is there anything that you wanted to specifically bring up before we say bye?
You know what? Just be your authentic self. That's it.
Be your authentic self. I like it. However that looks. And who cares what anybody thinks? I certainly do not.
Good. I love it.
Not anymore.
It took me too long to concur what you're saying. It took me too long. I worried a lot about what people thought. And I don't anymore, which is so great.
It's refreshing.
Yes,
Yay.
It is.
Freedom.
Yes, I know.
Freedom. Well, Wendy, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. That is You're It, Girl.
You're It, Girl. Awesome.